Good evening. I hereby call to order the April 26th, 2015 meeting of Mayfield Heights City Council. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Mercurio?
Here.
Mr. Monaco?
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Here.
Mr. Sharia?
Here.
Mrs. Teresi?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We will now move on to acceptance of the minutes of our last meeting from April 13th, 2015. I hope everyone's had the opportunity to look through the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of the April 13th meeting of City Council have been approved as written. Next, we will move on to correspondence and announcements. Does anyone have any announcement or correspondence? Mrs. Sabetta?
Thank you, Madam President. I had the opportunity to go to the Mayfield City School Realtors Lunch and Learn at Mayfield High School. It was presented by Lori Euler. We met at the school and we met the officials, the Superintendent Keith Kelly, Mayfield High Principal Jeff Legan, and two members of the school board, Mr. Hess and Mr. Fonaro. During lunch, 4 students spoke on their benefits to the quality education and academic achievement at the Mayfield High School, remarking on the 21st century learning and technology STEM 2M, which prepares them for college, and the give back opportunity provided through the Key Club consisting of 400 student members. The students prepared a very creative video which they showed as a realtor cast as a student interviewing clients, and the clients were a little boy and girl on what they thought a school system would provide. The students then opened the floor to questions. We had a tour of the remodeled high school, including Wildcat Sport and Fitness, where a game of pickleball was on the court and the track was in use. It was too wet to tour the Wildcat Stadium. We, the realtors, left with printed material and prospective clients. It was a very nice presentation and was commented by all. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any comments from Mrs. Sabetta? I have one bit of correspondence as well. On April 21st, I had the pleasure of representing the City of Mayfield Heights on a panel discussion that was held at Lyndhurst Community Building. The Community Partnership on Aging and the Volunteer Diversity Committee held a forum on older adults with differing disabilities. This panel addressed these older adults that had special needs. Panelists were from our neighboring communities of Lyndhurst, Highland Heights, Mayfield Village, and the Executive Director, Stacy O'Brien, from our Community Partnership on Aging. Each of us panelists spoke for 5 minutes on how our individual city addresses the needs of older adults with hearing disabilities, mobility issues, visual impairment, or adults who have the need for assistive devices like wheelchairs, canes, or walkers. Over 40 people attended the forum that afternoon, and each of us had the ability to give our presentation and then spend 10 minutes with the older adults in a question and answer period. I want to thank our fire department, our police department, and most of all Renee Augustine for all of the information that they provided to me in order for me to address the panel and the older adults on what our city has to offer. It was very interesting to hear the services our other communities offer as well. And it was a very informative discussion for all of those that were in attendance. So I wanted to thank everyone here who assisted in providing that information. Are there any other comments or any other correspondence? We'll move on to reports of officers, and we'll begin with our mayor, Mayor DeSico.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening, whether you are here in the audience or at home. May is Older Americans Month, and on May 6th, the city of Mayfield Heights will be celebrating with lunch at the Dijon Community Center, followed by the showing of A Little Shop of Horrors, which was provided by Atlas Cinemas, Eastgate 10, and sponsored by a number of other local providers. And stop in and enjoy the movie if you can. The annual shredding and recycling event will take place on Saturday, May 2nd from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. at the community center. Acceptable items include up to 5 boxes of documents for shredding, computers, small electronics, and household hazardous waste, which includes pesticides, oil-based paint, and motor oil. A mailer was sent out to all residents, and it's also available in the news box on our home page, and which has a comprehensive list of acceptable items. I just want to put out a reminder again. I commented on this, or reported on this, I should say, at our last meeting, that the East Side Greenway project and the plan is the final plan, I should say, is being introduced at public meetings May 12th through the 20th at various places around the city, I should say around the county. And as you are aware, the East Side Greenway plan seeks to increase pedestrian and bicycle connectivity in and between the eastern portion of Cleveland and 18 suburbs. So the same content will be presented at each of the meetings, so you can choose a date that best fits your schedule. And I did report on those places. May 12th is in Warrensville Heights Public Library. May 13th is Sturley's Country House. May 19th is the Collinwood Recreation Center. And May 20th is at the Bottle House Brewery. And those are all listed on the eastsidegreenway.weebly.com site, so you can get those, you can get more information there. And they're really looking to get some resident participation. They could get some different ideas. They would really welcome that. And lastly, I want to report that I've endured some threats and harassment by Councilman Mano over the temperature of the council chambers. He even suggested wearing some inappropriate attire to the meetings if the issue was not addressed. So I would like council to rest assured that we are looking into this. We have a meeting on May 7th with Gardner Train, Bob Tribby, Joe Finaro, Tom Jameson, and I to discuss needed changes to some of the ductwork. So hopefully that will take care of the problem. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Oh, Mr. Mano.
Mayor, I just want to thank you for finally getting this, bringing it to a head to try to get this thing resolved, because the temperature in here is crazy. So I promise I'll leave my Speedo at home until we get this thing taken care of. Thank you.
Be much appreciated. Thank you.
Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, let's move on to our Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wanted to report to Council that I attended the April 13, 2015 meeting of Planning Commission to present the 2 ordinances that are on 3rd reading this evening regarding review by Council of Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals decisions. After a number of questions by Planning Commission, Planning voted unanimously to recommend to Council that both of those ordinances be adopted by Council. So that they are on 3rd reading this evening, but we still have to have a public hearing, which is scheduled for May 11th. So I would request that both of those ordinances be tabled this evening until we can have the public hearing and then look at adopting them at that point. Apart from that, that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Murphy, I just had one question regarding those 2 ordinance changes. On one, the mayor can make a modifying, decision to modify, I should not say decision, but can modify or change or, the motion, and on the other, he can't. So it's different on the planning commission side versus the BZA side.
I don't recall offhand that the mayor can really do anything with regard to modify unless,
It says here, I'll read it to you. This is on here. This one here. It says any member of council or the mayor may introduce a resolution at a subsequent council meeting confirming, modifying, or reversing the decision of the board. It says that for 2015-10, which is the BZA, but it doesn't say that for the planning commission. So I just wanted a clarification on that, whether he should be on both, or is it?
once again, and a similar question was raised at the planning commissions. I can see where you're coming from. First of all, the mayor can always introduce any legislation he wants, any written legislation, ordinances, or resolutions. So he does have the power to do that. They're different in this case because the Board of Zoning Appeals review is by means of written legislation which is presented to council, just like there are 5 BZA decisions to be considered by council for review this evening. The Planning Commission review is by motion of council. That's in the motion section. So really only a member of council can make that motion to confirm or modify or reverse the planning commission. That's not within the other codified ordinances that the mayor has that power. So he really can't make a motion. He would have to get a member of council to make that motion. That's why they're different.
Okay, thank you. I just needed a clarification on that.
Any other questions for our law director? We'll move on to Director of Finance, Mr. Tribby.
I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Tribby. Are there questions for Mr. Tribby? Next, we will move on to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, and we will begin with the Building Committee. Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We held a meeting on April 13th prior to the council meeting. Several issues were discussed, and there is legislation currently being prepared as a result of that meeting. We are also scheduling the ad hoc committee meeting to discuss the questions that we will put forward for the gentleman that is our proposed planner. That's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Mano? Moving on, we'll move to our Finance and Audit Committee. Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have one item on tonight's agenda regarding the purchase of 2 vehicles for our Park and Recs Department and our Building Department. Those vehicles were budgeted for, and we can address any questions as they come up later on in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Mercurio? Next, we will move on to Legislative Committee, and that's Mr. Nino Monaco.
Thank you, Madam President. We had no meeting, so therefore I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Monaco? We will move on to Public Works and Services. Mr. Sharia.
Thank you. This past week, the Service Department started working to get the parks ready. Oh, thank you, Mercurio. I can always count on you. The water in the parks has been turned on. And believe it or not, baseball has started. I drove past it tonight. There must be 2 ball players out It's awfully cold out there. The fountain at the bocce courts has been put up. All of the damage from this past winter has been top dressed and fixed. The road department has repaired 4 catch basins, 2 on West Minor, 2 on Malin. And they also kept up with complaints on patching any potholes that have been reported. The Parks Department has been fixing tree lawns from damage caused from snow plows, and they've also planted 3 trees requested by residents to put on their tree lawns. They've also removed trees and upgraded on Woodhurst and Larchmont. And I want to tell you, our constituents knocked on my door to congratulate me, and I said I was only the messenger. The accolades go to the service department, not to Sharia. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Mercurio. Are there questions for Mr. Mercurio? Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Sharia. I apologize. Sorry, Paul.
Don't make that mistake again.
I won't, I promise. Okay, let's move on to the Recreation and Parks Committee. Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The pancake breakfast recap. The pancake breakfast had many participants. We enjoyed the pancake very much. We would like to thank the mayor and council for cooking and all the Parks and Recreation Commission and volunteers. The non-resident registration tomorrow is the beginning of non-resident registration for day camp. If you have not signed up for day camp, don't wait, the session sells out. Spring Shootout Bocce Tournament, May 16th. We are still taking teams. The cost is $160 a team and the $1,500 in prize money. Deadline to register is May 13th. Call the Recreation Department for more information. The City Bocce League's men's Thursday Night Bocce League fee is $200. Games begin at 7 p.m. Non-resident teams welcome. Co-ed Friday Night Bocce League fee is $200 for resident teams and $250 for non-resident teams. Games begin at 6:30. Call to reserve your team. Adult Afternoon Out, May 12th at the Ross DeJohn Community Center, $10, Cinco de Mayo. The theme of lunch will include a taco bar, cheese enchiladas, Mexican rice, refried beans, desserts, and coffee. Keep in mind that the new dates for our City Unity Days are June 26th, 27th, and 28th. Remember, our city website is interactive and can keep you updated on all parks and recreation activities with an online notification. So log on and join now. The next park and recreation meeting is tomorrow, Tuesday, May 28th at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Next, we will move on to Safety and Transportation Committee. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I met with Police Chief Bittner, and we went over several items. The first item was we will be looking into a retail safety initiative requiring all retailers to have video cameras in their entrance so that all patrons entering or exiting these retail establishments will be recorded. The chief will also be working with the state broker investigation unit to determine regulations that we could add to our ordinances to apply to current pawnbrokers and secondhand dealers. This would include a mandatory reporting of sales through a national online reporting system, making it easier for our detectives to track stolen items throughout the country. Residents on Algiers will be happy to know that there are no parking signs on Algiers from the back of Ganley Nissan to Mayfield Road. In addition, we've also installed no 1-hour parking signs from the back of that property line of Nissan to several houses down. on Algiers. So this will eliminate all of that parking congestion. Walmart is going to be getting signs put up on the east side of their property prohibiting no long-term commercial or motorhome vehicle parking. And finally, the chief is getting quotes on installing blue light emergency lights in our park areas. These are needed for when people have emergency calls or need medical attention when they don't have a cell phone. So he's looking on getting quotes on that, and we'll be seeing that real soon. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Are there any questions for Mr. DeJohn?
I have a question.
Mr. Monaco?
In the past, we talked about purchasing more speed monitoring devices for the police department. And do you know if this is something that's being considered?
We do have 2 now, but I don't know that they were interested in getting more, so Mayor, maybe you can answer that.
They're not in the budget for this year, but the police department really does find them very useful. So I'm not sure if he prioritized things, Chief Bittner, this year and left them out of the budget, but he has not put them in the budget for this year.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Next, we'll move on to the Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have several items on tonight's agenda. I see that a few of our applicants are here tonight, and we can address any issues as they come up.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Mercurio? The next is Commission on Aging, and that is my commission. The annual Gold Resident Luncheon will be held on Friday, June 26th at the Ross C. DeJohn Community Center. And the next meeting of our Commission on Aging will be held on May 5th here in Council Chambers at 5 p.m. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions on the Commission on Aging?
Madam Chairman,
Mr.
this
Manna?
little brochure that you put together, would you like to comment on this?
That was basically the 5-minute presentation that I did at Lyndhurst, and I just put it in a PowerPoint presentation as a handout to the adults that were at the event. You know, many older citizens do not have cell phones and iPads and computers at home, so I thought it might be easier if you handed them something. And it was basically the same
Very well
bullet
done.
points.
Very
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Good information. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we'll move on to the Planning Commission, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple things. We met last Monday, and Mr. Murphy was kind enough to attend the meeting and explain ordinance number 2015-9 and 10 to us. That was unanimously approved by the commission. The other thing was on the agenda that night was Goodwill. Their proposed changes in that building there. And I see they were in the audience tonight, so we'll discuss that a little bit later when it comes up.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. DeJohn. Are there any questions for Mr. DeJohn? Next, we'll move on to the Mayfield Union Cemetery. Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. I had correspondence that the Mayfield Heights, Highland Heights, and Mayfield Village have contributed their annual maintenance fee. The annual insurance has been paid. General maintenance requests an increase of $100 due to fertilizers and flowers going up. For the past 2 years, the cemetery has used organic fertilizers, and the price is higher. Roger Remnick and Chris, the past cemetery caretakers, have agreed to work on the same schedule as they did in 2014. The Mayfield Village Garden Club will plant a French lilac bush in this cemetery in memory of John Barry, who was an active member and served on various committees in the Mayfield Village with his wife, a longtime member of the Mayfield Village Garden Club. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta this evening? Next, we will move on to our public portion. We will now pursuant to Section 121.02, Section H8 of the Codified Ordinances. Each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak. with the public portion a maximum of 30 minutes. Although this is not a time for public debate, this is your opportunity to address council with any of your concerns. Please know that no personal attacks or comments will be allowed. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized. You'll approach the podium, state your name and your address for the record. It is now 7:27 and we will open the public portion. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Al Muley. I'm from Chesterland, Ohio. I am here representing the Mayfield Township Historical Society for the 7th year. And again, I'm here to say thank you very much for your contributions that you gave to us. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what had happened. In the past year, we had major construction. And I talked about in the past, there was a roof and there was a sidewalk repair. In this envelope here, I will give to Madam President that you could look at it at your own free will. There's pictures of the construction going on. At the end, I would maybe like to have the service director have this, because this CNC roofing they used the roofing buggy to get to our building. We have no access. We only have a pathway going into our house for the museum. And to get all the shingles out of there, which is a huge building, and to get the new material in, they had to use this roofing buggy. And it's quite a vehicle to see used. And it worked wonderful. Did a great job, everything going well. Right now, we're going through the 3rd graders from the district. We're halfway through right now. But as always, you people are always invited to come. Just make the call to the home. I will get back to you. And we'll make up, we have Mondays we're open for visitations at any time. But we'll open at any time for people who want to come through to see what we have there. It's quite interesting. And I thought something would be very interesting, and maybe Mr. Tribby would enjoy this. We're given these contributions from the communities each year. And I looked through my records here, and it's very unique to see that within 2 years' time, it costs us $6,231 just to maintain maintenance of the building and the grounds. And I take care of the grounds, take care of the building. But that was in 2013. This year, it was $6,201. And here is my modern computerized thing called a 1920 spreadsheet. But believe it or not, our finance people ask me sometime, Al, do you have the numbers of what we purchased over here? But here's a spreadsheet I use from one year to the other, and it doesn't fail. It works. Anyhow, I thank you again. I hope to be back for my 8th year. And thank you so much for all you do for us.
Thank you, Mr. Muley. Would you please be kind enough to give your address at the podiums for our record? Thank you so much.
My home address is 13444 Cedar Acres Drive, Chesterland. And most of the days I'm at 606 Som Center Road. That's where you can find me. Thank you again.
The pictures are amazing of that little buggy that you talked about. We're just looking at them. Thank you, and we'll see you again next year. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Yes, sir. Please. State your name and address for the record.
My name is John Rakauskas, architect. My address is 4352 Pearl Road, Cleveland, Ohio. I'm talking about Resolution 2015-24, which is to be confirmed tonight. I would like to appeal to members of council here about this resolution. It was a 3-2 vote for the board, and so one vote would just make a difference. We're not asking a lot in terms of the height variance. It's only 2 feet over the limit. This is an architectural feature on the building and something that we feel is needed for better visibility for the proposed Comfort Inn. This business needs all the help it can get. It was a failed business. My client had bought this building. They're putting a lot of repairs on the inside and outside, and I think they deserve a fighting chance. This is not a setting a precedent. It's one thing if you have along Mayfield Road, you have you want to enforce a height limit. This is tucked in the back corner around behind the Best Buy. We just feel it would help be visible from the freeway a little better. I think the architects on that board understood this, and I really would like to appeal that we would be able to get a chance to overturn that board's decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? Seeing no one else, we will close the public portion at 7:34. We will now move on to resolutions, and we will begin with Resolution 2015-17. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2015-17, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with North Star Planning and Design, LLC, to provide professional consulting services in connection with the update of Chapter 1183, fences, and Chapter 1191, signs, of the codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this resolution on second reading?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to place on second reading.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-17 has been placed on second reading. We will move on to Resolution 2015-18. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution 2015-18, a resolution authorizing an engineering services agreement with AECOM Technical Services, formerly known as URS Corporation, for the purpose of providing the City of Mayfield Heights with necessary engineering services and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Everyone should have received a copy of the contract from AECOM, and that is the company that URS has merged with. The retainer remains the same with a small 5% increase, which was stated in Mr. Tribby's memo. Any other comments or discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-18 has been adopted. We will move on now to Resolution 2015-19. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution 2015-19, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with URS Corporation to provide professional consulting services in connection with the expansion and renovation of the Mayfield Heights Police Department and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Again, we received a copy of the proposal for the consulting services for URS for the expansion of our police department. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Mr. DeJohn?
Yes, this is for the detail, the specs for the construction that'll go out to the architects, correct?
For bid. Will
For
go out
bid,
for bid,
yep.
yes. To contractors, yeah, not architects. Any other questions? Mr. Monaco?
I'd just like to make a statement that I would like to see 3 bids, reviewed by this body so that we can make some comparison. I'm not saying that the company is not a good company, but I think that we need to bring some competition in so that we can get the best price and probably the best candidate to give us a proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Mercurio?
Just for comparison purposes, I had Mr. Tribby was kind enough to do a little research for me, and when we built the municipal complex here, that was this is a $7.2 million building, and the architecture and engineering fees on that were $1.3 million, which represents about 18% of the cost of the building. In looking at the plans for the addition for the police department, it looks like it's going to be somewhere in between $300,000 and $350,000 roughly, and the $56,000 that also represents about 18% of the cost of the building. So just for comparison purposes, I thought that was fairly consistent.
And it will go out to bid to contractors, so we probably will have 3 bids.
I'll respond to that.
Mr. Monaco?
In all the years that I've been associated with Hillcrest Hospital doing inspections with them, I never seen an engineer do the drawings for a commercial place like that. So I'm a little reluctant into saying yes to an engineering firm do that. I'm sure that they're very capable, however, I don't know that they have an electrician, an electrical contractor, or an electrical engineer on site who could do the electrical drawing. If you recall, I think that's the same company that worked on this project here, and we're having problems with the air conditioning units. So having said that, I'm okay with that, but I just wish that we would have gotten more quotes and we had brought more people, more players into the arena here.
Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. I had a brief conversation with Councilman Monaco earlier, and we talked about this a little bit. I think AECom is a big enough company where they have those divisions, enough divisions and enough specialties where I think there's anything that you could want or any kind of specialty that you would require for those types of jobs that would need to go on here, or specs, speculating that would need to be done here. So I appreciate the fact that you'd like to go out for bids here, but I think it's going to put us too far behind as far as getting this done in a reasonable amount of time. And the same as Mr. Mercurio, I kind of looked around and did a comparison of some jobs and prices that could be comparable, and it seems to be about the right percentage for the job, but that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mayor. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes,
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-19 has been approved. We will now move on to Resolution 2015-20. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-20, a resolution authorizing the mayor to issue a purchase order to Nick Mayers Marshall Ford for the purchase of 2 vehicles for the building and recreation departments and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Again, we received a memo regarding the 2 new vehicles from Nick Mayer's Marshall Ford. The money has been appropriated in the budget for this. Any questions? Seeing none, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-20 has been approved. We'll move on to Resolution 2015-21. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-21, a resolution accepting a certain bid for the relining of the water main on Mayland Avenue and declaring an emergency. The award would be to Utilicon Corporation. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mano. Again, we received a memo from Mr. Tribby authorizing the mayor to enter into this contract with Utilicon to repair the Mayland water relining. Money has been appropriated for this as well. Questions? Mr. Mercurio.
Just wondering, do we know when the work will start and what the duration of the project is?
Mayor.
I'm not sure of the exact start date, but they had to wait until weather permitted, so as soon as this is approved, they're gonna get going on it as soon as possible. Bob, have you heard a for sure start date?
No, I think they have to get a few, like you said, some of the permits, but they had to wait until the weather, which we now have, is, shall we say, it's not below freezing, so they can put the temporary water line out while they do the work. I don't know what the length of time is, but it shouldn't be all that long. The street is relatively short.
Any other questions? Mr. Monaco?
Just like to make a comment that I'm really happy that we are taking care of the modern technology to relining the pipes rather than replacing it. I think that's going to be cost effective and it's going to be less destructive to the properties.
Thank you, Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-21 has been approved. Resolution 2015-22. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-22, a resolution accepting a certain bid for asphalt and declaring an emergency. Proposed contractor is Stone Co. Inc., DBA Allied Corporation. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Again, we received another memo from Mr. Tribby for the purchase of asphalt, which is a pleasure after all of the salt that we purchased for the winter. It's with Stoneco, which is Allied Corporation, as Mr. Murphy stated. Are there any questions pertaining to this? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes,
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, Resolution 2015-22 has been adopted. We'll move on to 2015-23. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-23, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Michael Nicholson, 1391 Ranchland Drive, a 2-foot variance from the property line to replace a detached garage. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 861-05-088. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Monaco. The applicant came before BZA requesting a 2-foot setback variance to replace the detached garage 3 feet from the property line. It was a unanimous vote to grant from the BZA. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything?
Just like to add that the current garage there is also at a 3-foot setback right now, so he's just going to get rid of that current garage, use the same setback, and build a bigger garage. And I don't know if anyone had a chance to go look at the property, but he does have a bit of a practical difficulty in that I think that 2-foot variance would help him pull out of his yard just the way that the driveway and that house is situated in comparison to the garage.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Mercurio? So if we're going to agree with the BZA decision in granting the request, you will vote yes. If you want to overturn BZA's decision, you will vote no. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-23 has been adopted. We'll move on to Resolution 2015-24.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2015-24, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in denying to John Rakauskas Architecture on behalf of Comfort Inn a variance to extend the portion of the east side wall to a height of 40 feet on the property known as 1421 Golden Gate Boulevard, Mayfield Heights, Ohio. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-05-002. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
yes,
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Okay, the applicant came before BZA requesting the height variance on the east side wall, and they were denied by BZA. It was a 3-2 deny. They felt that there was no practical difficulty. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything?
I can just add that, as you said, it was a 3-2 denial. The 3 folks who denied it just felt that the 2 feet really wouldn't do them much good, and the 2 people that voted for the approval thought that it might help a little bit.
Okay. So if we're going to agree with the, I'm sorry,
One
Mr.
other thing to
Mercurio.
add is they do have, a variance was granted in the past. They do have a variance to have a sign on that east elevation.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Mr. Mercurio, is this a lighted sign, illuminated?
I don't know, they didn't,
Is
is the applicant here? Yeah, I don't,
Illuminated?
Any other questions or comments? So if we are going to agree with the BZA decision in denying the request, you will vote yes. If you want to overturn BZA's decision, you will vote no for an overturn of the denial. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-24 has been approved, has prevailed. Next, we'll move to Resolution 2015-25.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-25, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Matt Heisey, Vocon, on behalf of Third Federal Savings and Loan, 5780 Mayfield Road, a variance to construct a new building at the property with only one access drive on Mayfield Road. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel number is 861-24-044, 861-24-045, and 861-24-063. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Excuse me, Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. The applicant came before BZA requesting a variance to construct this new building with one access drive. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything?
This was a 4-to-1 approval. Again, by ordinance, they need two separate driveways, an ingress and an egress. In this lot, there's just not enough room for the two driveways. If they did put two driveways in there, they would need another variance because you need 120 feet from center line to center line, and there's just not enough room there. I was okay with it. This is Third Federal Savings. It is not going to have a drive-through at all, so I really didn't see the necessity for the two driveways, and I felt that they can use the current curb cut the way it is.
Thank you. Any other questions? Again, if we're going to agree with the BZA decision in granting the request, you will vote yes. If you would want to overturn BZA's decision, you will vote no. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-25 has been approved. Resolution 2015-26, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Sorry. Resolution number 2015-26, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in denying to Matt Heisey, Vocon, on behalf of Third Federal Savings and Loan, 5780 Mayfield Road, a variance to place an identification sign on the east side of the building. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 861-24-044, 861-24-045, and 861-24-063. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Again, this was requesting a variance for a 3-foot sign, a secondary sign on the front entrance. It was denied by a 4-to-1 vote. Mr. Mercurio, anything else?
It was a unanimous denial. I think the board felt that where the monument sign is positioned, that would allow for plenty of identification.
Thank you. Any other questions? If you're going to agree with the BZA decision in denying that request, you will vote yes. If you want to overturn BZA's decision, you will vote no. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, Resolution 2015-26 has been adopted. We'll move on to Resolution 2015-27. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. A resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in denying to Matt Heisey, Vocon, on behalf of Third Federal Savings and Loan, 5780 Mayfield Road, a variance of 3 square feet for a secondary sign on the front entrance. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 861-24-044, 861-24-045, and 861-24-063. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Again, this is BZA unanimous to deny. Mr. Mercurio?
I believe it was a 4-1 denial. Yeah,
This was, I believe, unanimous.
the east elevation was unanimous. This one was a 4-1, I believe. They're out of order from the minutes. They don't match up.
Oh.
This one was a 4-1. Again, the board just felt that with the allowable signage, that they were still easily identifiable.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Mercurio? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-27 has been approved. I think that was the last one, right? Now we're ready to move on to ordinances. 2015-9.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Murphy.
Madam Chairman. Ordinance number 2015-9, an ordinance amending Chapter 1101 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled City Planning Commission by amending Section 1101-02 pertaining to council's action on the Planning Commission's agenda. Third reading.
I need a motion to place ordinance 2015-9 on third reading. Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to place on third reading.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. This ordinance has been placed on third reading and a public hearing will be held on May 11 at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. Next, we'll move on to ordinance 2015-10. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-10, an ordinance amending Chapter 1155 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled Board of Zoning Appeals by amending Section 1155.07E pertaining to council's action on the Board of Zoning Appeals decision. Third reading.
Is there a motion to place this ordinance on third reading? Moved by Mr. Monaco, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to place on third reading.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Ordinance 2015-10 has been placed on third reading and a public hearing will be held in council chambers May 11th at 6:30 p.m. Next, we will move to ordinance 2015-11. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-11, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled Council by enacting Section 121.04 pertaining to salaries. Third reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend. Okay. A motion to approve. We didn't need to suspend. Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. This is an ordinance that amends Chapter 121 of the Codified Ordinance entitled Council enacting Section 121.04 pertaining to salaries. Roll call on the motion to approve. Yes. Discussion? No one looks like they have a thing to say. Is anybody awake? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Dejan?
So we don't have
Yes.
to suspend.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Ordinance 2015-11 has been approved. Ordinance 2015-12.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-12, an ordinance amending Chapter 131 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights entitled Mayor by enacting Section 131.05 pertaining to salary. Third reading.
This is on third reading, so we just need a motion to approve. Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Discussion? Mr. Mercurio?
Yeah, I can just explain what this in the prior one was. This is for salary adjustments, salaries of council and the mayor. Those adjustments will be based on an average of the last 5 years of the Consumer Price Index minus 0.25%. Those adjustments will take place annually only if the prior year's financial results finish in the black. So there will be no adjustment if the prior year is in a deficit. And again, those adjustments will be an average of the 5-year CPI minus 0.25%.
Thank you, Mr. Mercurio. Any other questions?
Madam President, just to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Mercurio said, and Mr. Mercurio did a great job in setting these all up and researching this. And when we discussed this at the Finance Committee meeting, with just a little background for anybody who hasn't heard this before, it's going to avoid some major increases that have happened over the last few years to council and the mayor's salary. So it's just to take a little bit more small incremental approach to it and still be fiscally responsible.
Mr. Dejan?
And it does take the politics out of it.
It does. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Dejan?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Ordinance 2015-12 has been adopted. We would now like I would like a motion to deviate from the agenda and allow our applicant for goodwill to come forward with the motion to be addressed before we go into executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Mercurio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion has been approved. Mr. Murphy, would you like to read the motion?
Thank you. Motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a preliminary site plan for a loading dock addition and a drop-off canopy for the proposed Goodwill store at 6605 Mayfield Road.
Yes, the applicant is here. If you'd like to come forward, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Robert Gamperl with Berengaria Development, representing.
We need to do a motion to approve. Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Now we'll have discussion. Now you can state your name and address, please.
Robert Gamperl with Berengaria Development, representing Goodwill of Greater Cleveland and East Central Ohio. Address is 301 North Broadway, Suite 300, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53217.
And I'm Ben Gingrich with HSB Architects. We're at 1250 Old River Road, Cleveland, Ohio.
We'd like to thank the council for addressing our motion here this evening. We had a favorable meeting with the Plan Commission last week, and Plan Commission did ask us to address a few items on our preliminary site plan. Prior to addressing the site plan, I'd like to give a short presentation of Goodwill to the council if they're so inclined to hear it. Just a little bit about Goodwill in Greater Cleveland, our efforts to restructure the organization on a retail level, and show you some of the expectations and our results of the recent past here in Greater Cleveland, and then we can roll right into the site plan. Is it possible to bring that up, or?
You might have to,
Wait.
like, you hit, like, one of the function keys to make it talk. Like F4, F8, or F10.
Come on, you guys are younger than me, and I get my laptop to work on there. Come on.
I'm looking here.
Maybe it's a function button like F8 or something like that. Oh, it does. It looks like a Surface.
Yeah, it's a Surface. Have you had one of these up there before?
Surfaces.
I know we've got a adapter piece here.
Yeah, I don't know that we've had a Surface.
It's a regular PC.
It should act just like
Any other computer.
Yeah, sometimes there's trouble with the, I guess the connection, talking to our system.
There we go. Got it.
We're off.
Those are my kiddos.
Pretty cute.
Thanks. That's all my wife. Okay, so Goodwill of Greater Cleveland, East Central Ohio, was born out of the East Central Ohio Goodwill about 8 years ago, taking an opportunity to rescue the Goodwill of Greater Cleveland from financial, they were in bankruptcy. And so 8 years ago, they took over the territory. And one of the first things they did in order to bring some financial stability to the organization was they set up thrift shops that many of us are familiar with, where you go into space and you set up shop and you start selling donated goods to generate income. They carried that process on for a few years in order to, again, stabilize their balance sheet. And then about 3 years ago, they had the opportunity to bring on the group that I work for, Berengaria Development. We specialize in donated goods retail. We were born out of the Southeast Wisconsin, Chicago Goodwill had a similar scenario where Southeast Wisconsin assumed Chicago's territory, and they had since rebuilt their organization about starting 8 years ago is when we were invited, and they've reached great success down there in creating donor patterns and behavior where this now a $250 million donated goods retail industry specific for Goodwill. They actually are able to use that amongst other opportunities to fund their mission in Southeast Wisconsin, Chicago. Goodwill of Greater Cleveland, East Central Ohio, just for a little context, last year just in Greater Cleveland affected 74,000 individuals in Greater Cleveland directly through their mission services, whether that was through on-site providing jobs, on-site job training, or just job skills, or through other mission services in the area. Based on the success of the Southeast Wisconsin Chicago model, they've turned to the model where we now fund the mission through retail rather than fulfill the mission through retail. So a little bit about Goodwill. I like to think of them as the first green retailer. They take on donated goods that would otherwise end up in the waste stream and monetize them for that purpose. In Greater Cleveland, which their territory here is Geauga, Cuyahoga, and Half a Lake County, Cuyahoga, excuse me, and Half a Lake County. We currently have 8 stores in operation. We're looking to grow that specifically here with Mayfield Heights. And then we also have a series of other stores down in East Central Ohio, which surrounds the Canton area and all the way out to East Weirton, West Virginia. I won't bore you with reading the details on the slides. I think you guys can handle that. But what I do want to again stress is that the Goodwill retail model that we're working with for the past 3 years here is not your grandfather's thrift store. This is a major mainstream retailer where we go, we seek out grade A real estate, we pay market rate, we invest heavily in long-term leases, or we try to purchase the land and operate the building, develop the building ourselves. For instance, here in Mayfield Heights, we're at 6605 Mayfield Road. We've got a long-term lease set up with the landlord, and we're investing over $1 million in this property, or proposing to invest over $1 million in this property to bring it up to speed. One of those key components is really addressing that donation experience, where we're going to be adding a donation canopy. There's an example of it here on the screen on the right-hand side, where the donor is actually addressed by an attendant once they pull under this canopy that protects them from the elements, and that attendant comes out, meets them at their car, takes their goods, exchanges a tax receipt for that donor, so they can make their tax deduction at the end of the year. And it also shows a sense of care that the same amount of care that donor has when they look at their goods, in the sense that they want to donate that rather than they find value in that good still, rather than just junking that through the waste stream. Again, we take that over on the left-hand side of the screen. Most thrift stores or donated goods retailers will have their donation entry at the rear of the store next to the dumpsters, and it's sort of it's not a great experience. We will have, I heard earlier there's a motion here for retail safety to have 24-hour, or to have security cameras in the vestibules of all of the retail locations. Goodwill has been practicing that for quite some time. We put surveillance on the exterior of the building as well as the interior. One of the things that we use the surveillance for on the exterior of the building is to make sure that people aren't dumping rather than donating. And if we have incidents where some people are donating after hours and just leaving stuff outside where it can be perceived of as littering or trash, we will address that via the proper authorities. Hopefully it won't be a burden for your police service to help us track down those people that are not cooperating. We will have signs that post when donation hours are available. A little bit about who goes to Goodwill. Since we've transformed Goodwill, and we've successfully done this in many different locations across the country, we're finding that the typical or the preconceived shopper at Goodwill has changed quite dramatically, because these shoppers are looking for the same deep value that you'd find at Nordstrom Rack, TJ Maxx, Ross Dress for Less. The only minor difference here is that some of these goods are, the majority of the goods actually are donated so they'd be used goods as opposed to new goods that are just overstock or marked down products. But you'll find young professionals shopping here, looking to build their wardrobes for going to work or building their apartments. You'll find a lot of heads of households shopping here to cost effectively dress their kids and even again outfit their homes. Once in a while, we call them the treasure hunter. We see them going through Goodwills where they're looking for that $150 pair of jeans that you can pick up for 15 bucks. So you find a lot of fashionistas there. It's very fashionable now to mix and match your clothing with some high quality, high end pieces and trade those through. So a lot of excitement goes into the shopping experience as well. Briefly touched on this. I just want to talk a little bit about traffic. We find that we're a great co-tenant, and I think we're going to be a great asset to your community. As we collect those donations, we're driving those donors, and we're hopefully converting those donors to shoppers as well. But what we see is typically over around 4,500 weekly visits at our prototypical stores is what we budget for. And just for some comparison, we've got on the screen what a typical Longhorn Steakhouse would drive, about 2,700 weekly visits. Even a movie theater where they're busy on the weekends, about 2,200 visits. So you can see this is a high traffic retailer providing a lot of value and benefit. Again, this is not a thrift store, so what I want to do now is just take a brief moment and just share with you. I'm sort of flying through this. I realize we're late. Earlier, I think people were sleeping during some voting, so I'll keep this moving along. So we've done effectively delivered over 46 stores, 47 and counting, depends on the week lately, over the past 7 years with different Goodwills around the country. These are a few examples of them. All these are renovations here. But I want to bring to your attention what we've done in Cleveland. We've got 3 stores that are currently open that we've done, and as we rebrand and reinvent Goodwill in the area, and one that we're bringing online in concert here with Mayfield Heights is our intention. In 2013, Goodwill invested in a parcel on Mentor Ave, just in Paynesville, where we did a ground-up construction here. We added 20 full-time and part-time employees, over $400,000 in annual wages and benefits for that organization. That was just locally. The money, the revenue that's generated there goes back to the mission, and unlike some other donated goods retailers, we're taking those profits and putting them back into the community through the mission services. There's a lot of people talk about the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. We talk about it a little bit differently in terms of people, planet, and prosperity, where we are allowed to give that helping hand up and not a handout. Again, the key component of what we're trying to do here is also change that donor experience. With the donation canopy, the donation vestibule, where that attendant's going to come out and meet you, we use that as a moment to interact with our donor, really send the message home about how their donation is affecting people. This is the first donation entry. As you see, as we roll through, we get a little bit more ambitious here in Cleveland and getting that message across. But specifically, when we first opened Paynesville, for the first 6 months, we captured over 13,000 donations there. And that's donations that otherwise would end up in the waste stream. And so that's a real impact on the bottom line for municipalities. And in essence, we're acting almost like a public utility, diverting things out of the waste stream and then creating value again with those products and then putting it back into the community. Here's the second store that we did. This is out in Middleburg Heights. This is a great example of how we look at real estate, we address it, and then we renovate it. We were located in line at this shopping center here. We took the end cap space. This one was a center where frankly, we just couldn't work with it, so we had to invest heavily in here. We took the facade off of the front of the building. We created that donor entry on the front, and here we are again at grand opening. You can see the end result here is a very handsome building, and this was one where we actually had the donations in the back, like I had showed you in the beginning, where once we moved that donation center around to the front, we noticed that our donations doubled And not only did they double in volume, but they also increased in quality because people, again, saw us treating their used goods with the same amount of care and value that they found in those goods. So in essence, it's sort of a positive feedback loop, if you will. A couple of their images here of the interior where you're seeing how we address the stores, again, as a mainstream retailer where we're very specific in our merchandising approach. We contemporary in look and feel, polished concrete floors, open structure ceiling, painted out. Great branding and signage throughout. At least I like to think so. Specific at Middleburg Heights, we also had an office component there that addressed mission services. So we had 13 people that were, on site full time, working with living family wages. The third store that we did was down in Stark County in Jackson Township at Foxborough Square. Again, here's another center where we worked with the landlord and we did a major investment in here, putting the donation entry on the front of the building. We're in inline space. We spent quite a bit of time. We opened in June of this past year. This is one store that consistently outperforms our model, both in donation volume and in revenue, really reinforcing the Goodwill mission down in Canton area. Here's a finished example of that, again, using high quality architectural materials and really executing well on the renovation and the donor experience. The other store that's being planned concurrent with Mayfield Heights, and we are one step away, is down in Strongsville. We're looking for our final municipal approval in about 2 weeks here, so and then we'll hopefully be starting construction in the next 2 to 3 months here. This is another ground-up construction where Goodwill purchased the land and is building a building on site. This is right across from the new Giant Eagle Marketplace, for those of you familiar with with Strongsville. But again, we're again investing in a high-quality building, paying market rate for the land, and being an active community participant. A couple other images again of renovations. I just want to start to get your mind thinking about Mayfield, the former Walgreens over here on Mayfield Road, and what we can do with it in terms of creating a valuable asset right at the gateway to your community. Here's one where we took I can't remember if this is an old Staples, but we again renovated it, punched in some windows, breathed in some new life into that building. Really made I think a well done architectural statement. Again, in Elmhurst, Illinois, where we took a horrible retail experience and made it rather nice. And a couple other former linens and things, just simple moves, putting our trade dress of the blue awnings, our iconic blue awnings, and our signage on there, blending in with, again, high quality materials. Another very simple renovation where we just put awnings on and some signage. This was another heavy investment, but to show you the far end of what we accomplished. So with that, I'd just like to ask if the council has any questions about Greater Cleveland, East Central Ohio Goodwill, and if not, we'll roll right into the site plan and how we address some comments from Plan Commission.
Questions, anyone for the applicant?
Okay, so the site plan, actually, first things first, the building program right now is a Walgreens, currently on the north side of the building. I don't know if we can bring up the screen again. I've got the existing conditions site plan here. Oh, there's my wife. Is it not working?
Does he have to disconnect that to bring you want to bring up the paper? Is that what you want to do, or the?
Yeah, I guess we can do it on paper too, sure. You guys have seen enough of my family, I suppose. So let's go with the existing. First off, this is the existing building here. There's a pharmacy drive-through on the north side of the building. The current entry is on the south side of the building here, and along the west side, there's a bunch of loading, and that's where they keep their trash, and some screen walls for their old pallets and access to the back of the building. Access to the site, there's a full signalized intersection here at Mayfield. This is in alignment with the Walmart across the street, and then there's a right-in, right-out entry here off of Mayfield, and this is the ramp up onto 271. We had a great conversation with Plan Commission last week, and through some suggestions that they had, I think we were able to improve the site plan dramatically. The first things I want to address are the building. What we're doing is, let me see if I can move this down. We're removing the pharmacy drive-through on the north side and putting on a small loading dock addition here. This would be a fully depressed dock. I was out there with the gas utility this morning talking through. We have some site issues with utilities. I think everything's going to work out just fine, and we can address this, the loading dock and some of the concerns that came up in a moment. On the west side of the building, we're going to clean that west side up completely, remove all of the existing trash and other containers and the screen walls over there, so we have a nice clean facade that faces the freeway. Along the south side of the building, we're proposing to relocate the main entry to the east face of the building so we can address the large parking field that's currently in existence out there. And then on the east face of the building is where we're going to put that donation experience. So we'll have a large donor canopy off the east face of the building, and we'll create site circulation so donors can queue on the north side of the site as they move south, and then that allows them to either choose to park and shop, which is our hope, or it provides them easy access to the the egress off onto Mayfield Road or back to the signalized intersection. So a couple of comments that came up last week is, for those of you that are familiar with the site, circulation on this site can be a bit, let's call it hairy, where there's not very many, there's not a lot of good cues to where to drive if you don't see the striping on the pavement. So a couple comments that came up were, at the ends of the existing parking trees, to add some islands with landscaping in them, raised curb islands. So we've got 5 islands that we're looking at in these locations here. And then, so that'll provide some visual cues as to the drive lanes on site. We were looking at putting an island back here, but it's just not feasible due to our truck traffic to get to the loading dock. We don't want to damage that island. And then there was one other island that was requested, and that was at the end of this parking tree here, which is right at the end of the donor drive. We had studied that, and what we found and what we discussed was that if we do have a large U-Haul come through, the turning radius there would be pretty tight to get out of there. So this one we would just do as a striped parking in the parking field to give a little extra radius for larger trucks and trailers as they exit the donor entry. We'll have landscaping along at the front of the main entry and alongside the building in this and by the loading dock. Is there a comment, or is that just me? Okay. And then the other comment, major ingress-egress issues were at the signalized intersection and at the right-in, right-out. It came to our attention from the Plan Commission that the throat here at the main access point at the signalized, a suggestion was made that if we were, here's the existing curb line, if we were to pull that curb line in closer, it would sort of create a little bit more deliberate circulation on site between the parking and this island. It would also give a little bit more queuing for people that are exiting the site here. Right now it's pretty minimal. You get 2 cars in there and all of a sudden you're sticking out into the circulation. So here we'll get a little bit more depth in there for queuing. We'll get a little bit more deliberate circulation along the south side of the site. And then the other comment was at the right-in, right-out, seeing if we could go to egress only rather than ingress egress. I understand there might be some conversation on that within the city in terms of needing. We're proposing one lane would turn on to the freeway on-ramp, the other lane would turn on to Mayfield Road. Maybe we can have a little bit of dialogue about that if it's appropriate tonight. The other thing I want to address is the loading dock. Councilmember Dijon, your concern was the residents at the to the north here, and so we've got a screen wall that's going to be screening the loading dock. We're also going to do some landscaping here, I spent some time today, and Ben, our architect, has done a great job working on this. I'm just going to fast forward through here. This is a view that that Ben put together of approximately the 8th story of, sorry, the name's escaping me, Copper Tree Apartments. If you were to look down at that loading dock with the current landscaping plan, I spent some time over there. I was talking with the building manager this afternoon to see if I could get access to one of those apartments to see if I could take an actual photo so we could really get a good understanding of how we can address the concern of screening our loading dock. Right now we're showing the 4-foot screen wall, masonry screen wall, and we're showing 4 deciduous trees, and you can see that that does a pretty good job of screening the trailers while they're on site. We're still in talks with our landscape architect to identify particular species of tree, and whether we stick with a deciduous tree or go with an evergreen, so we have year-round screening at that location. But we're working through that, and we hope to have a solid resolution here shortly. I think those were some of the major comments from Plan Commission that we addressed. Here's a zoomed-in view of that owner experience in the loading dock. So maybe the thing to do now is I sort of really rambled there. Let's see if there's any questions or if anything we can address before.
Mr. Mano.
Can you go back to the drawing showing the front of the building?
This one?
Okay. There's a curbed area there that I believe has grass planted in it.
Right here?
In the front part, right in here. Isn't there a section there that's curbed?
Over here?
There's grass in there.
Yes, and there's 2 parking spaces right here that we were planning on, based on a Plan Commission comment, removing.
Okay. As you know, or don't know, we are involved at this time with a master plan to dress up Mayfield Road and to change things a bit. Would you consider putting a planting in there of maybe some shrubbery, maybe a tree or two we're trying to get more greenery on the front end of these buildings.
Sure.
And that might be a place that you could do that without too much problem. Would you consider that?
I think we can consider that. One thing that we did do, the first plan that we came to Plan Commission with was pretty Spartan in terms of landscaping. We added 5 islands, some landscaping back by the dock here. We increased the green space here out front. I'd love to commit to that right now. We have a construction budget that we're working through and trying to maintain. In a little bit, I can maybe give you a preview of what we want to do with the exterior of the building. I know it's a low-cost item. Let me see if we can study that and address it. And your comments heard, and we'd love to participate in that and see what we can do.
Yeah, most of your landscaping is unfortunately not going to be seen by people on Mayfield Road.
Yeah, unless you're exiting Walmart or
the front end of that is kind of crucial to the plan that we have in mind for adding more greenery on the front end of buildings.
Is that something that we can work with the city on in terms of, is there a plan or is there funding available within the city to execute some of this master plan?
Mayor?
Want to address that?
Not at this time.
Well, it should be something possibly that would be a contingency for the future, just to make you aware of the fact that we may come knocking on your door, and to bring yourself into compliance, you may have to do something like that. Okay. So you should really be aware of that.
Yeah, thank you. We'll do some research and find out exactly. How far along are you guys in the master plan process? I heard some news on it. Has that been confirmed and completed, or?
Well, it's still a bit off. We've got 2 phases complete, and we're getting ready to get into the 3rd phase at this point in time. So like I said, I just want to make you aware of it because, more than likely what we're we're trying to do is to get all the new businesses coming in to be prepared. Because when we implement that, you are gonna have to comply with some greenery, so. just so
Absolutely.
you know.
Councilmember Mano, is that something that you're particularly working on? Is that something we can talk offline about and figure out how we can, how we can work together on that?
There's nobody specifically assigned to it. I'm just making you aware of
Got it.
that situation is going to be occurring so that you're not blindsided by it. I just, if there's any way at all that you can incorporate it in your current renovation, that would be great. But if you can't, and once the plan is implemented, like I said, you have to know up front that you may be required to do some landscaping in that front section.
Okay, so specifics on the requirements, are those detailed yet and available?
No, they're not detailed as of yet. That'll be coming up in the third phase of this.
Okay.
But I just want to give you a heads up.
Loud and clear, received, thanks.
Madam President.